I, I do want to take some issue with the definitions that are being tossed around. Um, there's a definition of attainable that you all saw, that was 90% of market. The province has a new definition of affordable that is based on 30% of an income that is at the 60th percentile in the area being talked about. For Stratford, the 60th percentile is $93,000. So affordable is anything that somebody with an income of $93,000 can afford. That's a lot. That's actually something like 50% more than the current average market rents in Stratford. We've been told that Stratford has a choice between 80% or 30% of income. That's not what the official plan says. The official plan is very clear, page 134. It says it defines affordable. Affordable is for rental. Let's just deal with rental because apparently that's all we're going to talk about tonight. Affordable is either 30% of income or a rent that is at market, the lesser of the two. There is no choice between 30% and 80%, or 30% of income or 80% of market. That's just not there. And I know that that's how the housing department in Stratford applies their definition of affordable, but that's not the official plan. And the council has never changed the official plan, as far as I know. You may be very soon, but right now, the official plan is very, very clear that the definition of affordable is 30% of income or market rent, whichever is lower. There's no choice. It's whichever is lower. The current, as of last October, CMHC survey of average rents puts that at $1,591 for a two-bedroom apartment in Stratford. And they don't publish another one till this October. That's gone up 40% in 3 years. So the average rent, of which we're now aiming at 80% of, has actually gone up by 40% in the last 3 years. So 80% brings that down not very far. If someone in Stratford wants to be considered that a current average market rents in Stratford is affordable, they need an income of $63,000. So that $1,591 for a two-bedroom apartment is affordable to someone making $63,000. If you lower it to 80% of that market, so $1,200 and something per year, you still need an income of $50,000. And I didn't know we were aiming, as the definition of affordable, that people with incomes of $50,000 are what the city of Stratford considers affordable. There aren't very many single moms out there making $50,000. But maybe that's really what we're doing. I don't know. There is a Canada-Ontario housing benefit that is money between the province and the feds that comes to cities to make up the difference between what someone makes and 30%. They're still only using 30% of income. And that benefit is based on 30% of income, not the rent itself. So when the city of Stratford gets money under the COVH, Canada-Ontario Housing Benefit, it's not based on 80% of market. It's based on 30% of income. And that's the kind of scary thing about this whole thing, is that we are being asked to officially abandon the notion of affordable being 30% of income and officially base affordable on the price of the unit. And as Jason pointed out, the price of the unit can go up the next day by an infinite amount if it's built recently. There are no rent controls on anything built after 2018. So all of what we're talking about, because it would be theoretically new accommodation, new builds, there's no rent control on it. At the end of whatever period of time council decides is an appropriate affordability period, and that seems to be 10 years, the rents can triple. There's nothing stopping it. Even for somebody already in it. They don't have to kick anybody out to triple the rent. Now, I'm glad that we're not trying to follow the bouncing ball in the province and figure out what their latest definition is. It's gone from 30% of income 2 years ago to 80% of market, to the new definition, which is 30% of income, but only if the income is at 60% of the average incomes in the city. So that's $93,000. And thank you for not following the provincial definition, but maybe they're going to tell you you have to. They certainly will tell you you have to for developers that come in under that number. So if, for example, the builder's block, remember that crude property that's subject to an OLT appeal, if the rents in that place come in under $2,325 a month, that's now an affordable unit to a person making $93,000. If they do that, they qualify for compensation from the city. They qualify for removal of the development charges. So that's 351 units between, according to Ms. Fry, the DC waiver of 16,100 on average. That's close to $5 million that the city is forced to give up because of a provincial definition of affordable that a big developer might actually qualify for because of the new definition being so out of whack. I'm not sure how you defend against that, but just be aware that that same builder's block might come to you and say, had you accepted the provincial definition, might come to you and say, we also want a T for another between 11,000 and 13,500 per unit, so another $5 million. I don't think we've got that many kicking around to be giving developers. That's one of the really, really good things about what's being done here, is that it seems that it's limiting itself to small, very small developments. Like, I didn't know it had to be 5, but hopefully it can be 1. That if someone wants to turn their basement into a unit and rent it out for less than market, they should be able to get a T for that. Same as if you, now it's not legal in Stratford yet, but if you wanted to build a laneway house in your backyard, in theory, you could get a T for that, provided you're going to charge somebody, provided it's rental, because we're only talking about rental here, and provided you're going to charge somebody less than 80% of market for whatever that is. Now, the other thing that someone said is that the market that we're talking about is the CMHC publication, which comes out once a year. CMHC doesn't, they do a telephone survey, come up with an average rent, but that's not the next building rent. That's not the rent of a new unit. That's an average across all the units in Stratford and all of Ontario, including those that are covered by years and years of rent controls. So although it says it's $1,591, I don't think you'll find anybody that's going to rent you a brand new unit for $1,591. So I'm not sure how we square that either, but at least it's a smaller number that we're dealing with. So I'll go back to my main point, is that if you move the definition of affordable being based on the rent being charged, not on the income of the person who's trying to rent it, then you have turned the whole system sideways. CMHC doesn't give out COVH money on the basis of the rent being charged. It's on the basis of the income of the individual. That's really what we're talking about here, is trying to find housing that people can afford. not housing that developers can afford to build. It's housing that people can afford. I'm hoping that council will steer clear of trying to redefine it to some arbitrary, quite arbitrary number, 80%. Where'd that come from? Like, is there a scientific analysis that says 80% in fact creates a system with which most people can afford to live? Based on the numbers I see, I don't think that's the case. Most people don't have incomes of $50,000. The people that we're trying to help. I like the idea that this is being aimed at freeing up the undeveloped properties that they're legion in Stratford. There's lots and lots of people who have more house than they need, but can't develop it into something else because there are rules against it and there's no incentive for it. If you're doing that, if all you're doing is saying, we're going to spend some money here to allow the conversion of single-family dwellings into multifamily dwellings that are already extant, not being built brand new, then yeah, please, that's a really good idea. And freeing up some money to do that, to incentivize individuals, not corporations, not big developers, but individuals to help with Stratford's housing affordability issue is a really good idea. But I really fear that once we open the Pandora's box of 80%, you're going to have developers lining up, knowing that rents are artificially high because CMHC averages everybody. The developers are going to be lining up, looking with their hands out for big projects, and you're going to be on the hook. So I'm hoping that this good idea about freeing up, about creating affordable housing in the existing housing stock of Stratford is what you're talking about, is what you limit this to. And that's a really good idea. And it's also what the federal government said when they said, here's some money for housing, but you got to have multiplexes as a right, you got to have laneway housing as a right, there's all kinds of things that Stratford didn't do, so you didn't get any money. Now there's $13 billion coming down the pipe for affordable housing. Hopefully Stratford sees some of that, but not if you don't change the system that you've got now to make the federal government pay attention. Thank you.